Last night, my dear viewers, you were with us. Or perhaps tonight is the first night you're joining us. And just to reiterate what we mentioned yesterday by way of introduction, we said that these kind of majalis, they hit an emotional chord with us. And that is critical. But if this emotion doesn't graduate into something, if it doesn't graduate into more intellectual understanding, and from this graduate into us changing, then we need to question whether it's having the desired impact that such programs should. Because we can spend 5 nights in Fatimiyya, we can spend 10 nights in Ashr al-Muharram, we can spend 10 nights in Arba'een. We can spend 3 nights celebrating Sha'baniyya. We can spend 30 nights in Shahr Ramadan. We can spend every night of our calendar year mourning or celebrating the personalities of AhlulBayt alayhim salam. But if it doesn't graduate into movement, if it doesn't graduate into change, if it doesn't take us nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then perhaps we're missing the fundamental point of these individuals where they're known as Da'i Allah, callers unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we want this learning to graduate, my dear brothers and sisters, it is our obligation to go forward and to think, if this individual who I revere and love is Da'i Allah, is a caller unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then yes, I'll hear the call, but am I understanding what I'm being called to? In our day-to-day, what are you and I doing to increase our ma'rifah of our Creator? What are we doing to graduate our understanding so it changes us, so we become inspirations for not just ourselves, but for the whole world, such that Imam Sadiq would be proud when he looks upon us as his Shia. Now, more than ever before, you could argue that there is a significant challenge against our worldview. There was a study or a sample of a survey that I recently received from a recruitment agency looking at graduates in the UK. And whether this is true of other nations across the world, I'd probably say yes. But let's go with the facts. It was around 1,000 graduates in the UK, of which 50% identified as atheists. 1 in every 2, according to this study of graduates in the UK, from that sample size, have a directly opposing worldview to you and I. But if I were to be asked, why do you believe in Allah? Why do you believe in a God? Why do you have a faith? Is the answer on the tip of our tongue? Because you could argue this is the most critical question for us to be able to answer. And if 1 in every 2 are going to ask it to us, and we don't have an answer ready that we believe in, that we stand for, then what was the whole point of spending these 365 nights in celebration or mourning of the personalities that are Da'i Allah, callers unto this very creation that we're being questioned about? We can't attend on Yawm al-Qiyamah praying and hoping for this intercession if we've done none of our own homework about this creator that we're being called onto. So these nights, they serve as an emotional reminder, a catalyst within us to break away from our day-to-day worldly desires and attachments, to wake up, sever those ties, and to think, whoa, hold on, there is a greater good. That my financial stress, my family difficulties, my job challenges, all of these vanish when I engage in the masa'ib of AhlulBayt alayhim salam. But it can't end there. We must be equipped with certainty, with yaqeen, with conviction in our answer about why we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why we bow down 5 times a day in the direction of the Kaaba, why we believe in the divine revelation through the Holy Prophet, why we believe in the continuation of this message being secured through the A'imma alayhim salam, and why we believe in the day where we'll be questioned. And with this yesterday, we discussed Mawlati Fatima alayhi salam, and how she is this continuation, this connection between Nubuwah and Imama. And this is from the beautiful book entitled The Broken Bead by His Eminence Ayatollah Wahid al-Khurasani, may Allah grant him a lengthy life in his service towards AhlulBayt alayhim as-salam. And today I want to just share a second point that Ayatollah Wahid beautifully mentions in this book of his. And that is this. He starts by saying that every moment in our lives isn't just related to this earth. It's connected. Any action that we do in this earth is also part of the connection towards the solar system, to the galaxy, to the Milky Way, to all of these different parts of the world that are connected that we live within. We don't just live on the earth, we live within this entirety of the creation of Allah. And do we understand it? Of course, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تَحْصُوهَا. That if you count Allah's favors, you will not be able to number them. We live in a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we can never fully comprehend. We can't count it. And with that in mind, any act of disobedience, therefore, that we go forward and do in our day-to-day is us being unthankful to Him. That He's given us all these blessings, this ni'mah, this karama in our lives, in our creation, such that we can't even comprehend it. So when we go against His obedience, when we go against His word, we're not just sinning, we're being unthankful, we're being ungrateful for everything that He's given us. And then he looks at the other perspective and says, well, equally, if we do a good deed, that is obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need to recognize that even doing that good deed, we need to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. Because if today you pick up the Quran and you read it, yes, you've done a good deed, but you still need to thank Allah because He's given a favor on you to be able to carry out this. You've been able to use the eyes that He has provided you with to read, so we thank Him for this blessing. He's given us the aql and the intellect and the brain to comprehend what we're reading, to be able to decipher the Arabic language and to recite it correctly. We need to thank Him for this. He's given us the safety to be able to learn it. He's given us the teachers to be able to learn it from them. But the thing is that we'll never be able to thank Him enough. Not just because there's so many things and we won't have time to list them, but as we just mentioned in the previous ayah, He's given us so many favors upon us that we'll never thank Him sufficiently. And this is why the wise and the mystics in the scholarly world say that when you try and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's nothing but fault. Because even when you're offering that thanks to them, that gratefulness to them, we're still falling short because we still don't understand all of the bounties and favors and blessings that He's put upon us that have enabled us to do this. So there's only a certain group of people who are able to do this correctly. And if we wish to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a sufficient manner or engage Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a sufficient manner, we can't just do it ourselves because we'll do it injustice. We have to go to those who truly understand Him so they can represent us before Him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهِ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ, that verily Allah is feared only by those of His servants who are endowed with knowledge. So with all of these errors that I'm committing when I try to thank Allah for all of the blessings He's given me, even if I do it with the best of intentions, I'm still repeating errors because I'm not doing it well enough. I need to reach out to those individuals who have truly understood Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who can represent me in the correct way before my Creator. And how? This is why we have the concept of tawassul, of intercession. Reaching out to the one who has truly reached the highest possible status of absolute service to Allah. And the intercessor must be at a stage whereby Allah describes them by saying, مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يَشْفَعُ عِنْدَهُ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِهِ, that who is he that can intercede with him by his permission? This is fundamentally those individuals who have eliminated their pleasure and anger in the pleasure and anger of Allah. Does that sound like a familiar hadith? Those who have eliminated their very pleasure and their very anger in the pleasure and the very anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. Of course, we have hadith pointing that say that Fatima is one of these individuals. Those who in place of their evil desires have placed His divine intent as their sovereign. Everything for their existence is Allah is my creator. They have no other identity. Their status is that the intent of their Lord in the decree of his affairs comes down to them and is executed from their very house, the house of AhlulBayt, of course. So if we want to thank Allah in a sufficient way, if we want to speak to Allah in a sufficient way, our path is through the salvation of the AhlulBayt, the Imam alayhim wassalam. And the connection between this nubuwwah and this imamah is Sayyidah Fatima, Sayyidatin Nisa al-Alameen, and it's through her that we can reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the correct manner. So let these understandings sink in, my dear brothers and sisters. Let these intellectual bricks start to connect with one another so that we graduate, so that we change, so that it's not just an emotional connection. There is a true understanding as to what this whole goal of this world is, how it all works, how it all connects. Because then if we spend 365 days in the calendar year in lamentation and in celebration of these personalities with yaqeen, with ma'rifah, with understanding, we'll see many a benefit come our way. We'll see ourselves change and we'll grow closer towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.